Good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you hear me? Am I audible, please? Okay. Good afternoon once again, and I welcome you to today's webinar on managing people, not just process, practical tools for today's management leaders. Managing people, not just process, practical tools for today's management leaders. And so before we dive deeper into today's discussion, John Maxwell once said, "You manage process, but you lead people." You manage process, but you lead people. This simple yet powerful statement captures the essence of modern management, where success is not just about following processes and completing tasks, but success is about understanding, influencing, and inspiring people who drive results. In one of the modules of the Certified Management Professional, that's the CMP program, it is learned that in today's changing workplace, processes can be automated, systems can be updated. However, people still remains the most valuable asset, yet complicated asset an organization has. And so today, we are lucky to have an incredible panel of experts who will take us through or provide practical tools, strategies, and then live experiences on how managers can move from everyday supervising of tasks to truly leading people effectively. And then also we will explore how the CMP equip managers to handle today's workplace challenges. My name is Akosia Boateng, the administrator for Graduate Center of Management and the moderator for today. And so to our panelists, we have Dr. Seth Mensah Edmond. Dr. Seth Mensah Edmond works with the Ghana Gas. He's a manager and then the head of Marine. And then we have Mr. Courage Nunazo Meku. He's a consultant and then a facilitator at the Graduate Center of Management. And so before we start our conversation, let's quickly go for a short break.
Rule for the certified management professional, and with the first session that we've had, it's very educative to broaden your knowledge. Things that I was taking for granted as a manager, now I will know that I have to go in a particular way and shouldn't use force. And I will therefore recommend this course to people that are already managers, people that are hoping to be managers one day, and executives of organizations. Thank you.
The lecture was good and very interesting and very interactive. There's nothing like in-person class because you see people share their experiences, share their thought processes, and it's always very exciting. And the lecturer was a very good man. There's so many experiences in different fields and was able to share that with them. The lecture was good.
Okay, so I think from this, the first session, I realized that as a manager, you can have the skills, but only the skills won't get you the results, because you need to have the skills, have knowledge, and also be competent in getting the results. And it's more like the first session has enlightened us that all the work depends on how we manage the people, because we are going to get the results through the people that we work with. So if you don't manage them well, getting the results that we are expected to have as managers, we will not be getting all those results. I think I've been enlightened more on the reason why we're not getting certain outputs, we thought probably the workers that work with us, they are not really competent to the work, but I realize that there's more details to us managing them to get the best result out of them. So I think after this session, I believe that at least I'll be a better manager as I used to be. So thank you. Okay, so I think from this, for the first session, I realized that as a manager, you.
Okay, welcome back. Mr. Courage, please, can we see you? We want to see you.
Yes. Okay, that's fine. I think I'm
Okay,
just
you're
open.
welcome, sir.
Thank
So,
you.
sir,
How are you?
in management, we say we manage people and not process. So, I want to ask, managing people today is tougher than managing processes. And so, why do you think that is? And what challenges do managers face the most?
Thank you, Akusia, and good afternoon to you and to our audience. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Right. So I think for a very long time, we've all known that when it comes to the resources that a business needs,
Mhm.
one of the most compelling is people. Now, this is because even in the advent of AI, there are a lot of things that people can do that AI cannot do. People are emotional, people are value driven, people can give you what we call in management discretionary effort. And so you see that every time a business wants to transform, every time a business wants to get to the next level, it must know how to leverage that people competence for business success. And so that makes people very, very important to a business. And you asked about the challenges, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, as I have already explained, it is important for every business to translate its strategy into hard profits, into revenue, and all of that. And so, every time managers are asking themselves a question: what should I do differently in managing my people? How do I balance the issue of performance with paying attention to my people needs? How do I manage when there is silent disengagement? There are times when people can report to work, yet they are not giving their all. So, to my mind, there are a number of challenges that managers will face. I mean, there's even the issue of psychological safety. Unlike machines, you can set a machine to give you 50% output, 60% output. But when it comes to people, how much they give you is really based on your leadership style, based on several other factors. And so that makes the people management process quite challenging. These are the few things I would want to say to answer your
Okay.
question.
Okay, thank you so much. And so, can you share a real life example of a challenge that surprised you as a manager?
Yeah, when and in our world now, we are talking about AI, automation, moving the business to the next level. There was a very practical instance where the company was seeking to automate its processes. However, you had one very key high performer who was not subscribing to that whole automation process because they felt that once that process kicked off, then it means that their work was hanging. But that is where we let them understand that you have to move to the next level of analysis, next level of implementation, next level of understanding. So in this instance, we had to reframe that person's role around analysis. Okay, not just generating reports which the AI was going to do. And when you reframe some of these things that way, the employee tends to have a much more open mind about some of these technologies and things like that. So managing people can be a very dicey thing, and that really brings to bear the role of leadership, influencing people, managing culture as a very key asset that we bring to managing today's business.
Interesting. Dr. Seth, please can we see you?
Please, am I audible?
Okay, thank you so much for coming on. Okay, so I want to ask that in your experience, what are the biggest mistakes new managers make and how can they avoid them in your experience?
So I want to, first of all, should I go ahead?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Please go ahead.
Okay. So let me, first of all, take this opportunity to greet our cherished audience and then ourselves. My name is Dr. Seth Mensah Edward. One of the greatest mistakes, what you've said, managers, the greatest mistakes that sometimes managers make, as I'll just take a few cues from what Karen have said. You know, human beings are very complex in terms of handling situations. When you look at the Bible, in Psalm 139, verse 14, it talks about how God said he has created man. Man is wonderfully created. And when you look at human beings, we are quite very complex and dynamic. We keep changing. For example, when you look at a manager who is supposed to manage a department or a division, he works with a lot of people. Looking at the type of generation that we have, the generation from 1918 to 19, we have the silent generation, we have the baby boomers and the rest. When you have a team of people with whom you are supposed to be taking care of, taking charge of, or who are your teammates, one of the things, some mistakes that managers sometimes make, first of all, to delegate jobs so quickly, you need to assess the people you are delegating the job. Are they quite competent on the field which they are going to handle? In terms, for example, in the practical field, when a team member is supposed to handle a machine or an equipment which he has less knowledge on it, and you assign that person a task to perform, he may not have the full understanding of how to operate the system. Maybe in the school he have learned about it, but on the practical field, he may not have it. For example, where I used to be before I joined the Ghana guys, we have ships that we are supposed to handle. You cannot give a whole ship, a navigator cannot, a captain cannot give a whole ship to someone who is a first officer to handle a ship just like that. He has to first of all understand the ship, the dynamics of the ship, how the ship operates. Even in where I work now, if you want someone to handle a security system that's which you are using to monitor the plant or whatever, you have to make sure the person undergo a systematic training before you hand over that particular task to. The other mistake that managers sometimes makes is, first of all, secondly, they don't give clear guidelines or follow procedures and protocols. So you realize that when you give a job to someone, because he doesn't understand the clarity of what he's supposed to do, he'll keep making mistakes. So as a manager, how you can do to fix that is, first of all, take them through the process. What is the process of handling that particular job, so that we are looking at performance. So if you're able to go through a proper training, then you can hand over that particular job to that staff.
Okay, thank you so much. And so, from what you said, which one mistake do you see causing an organization the most? Can you give us one mistake that you think it causes an organization the most?
So we can, what I can say is that not managing up. When I say not managing up, that's one of the mistakes managers or organization can make. When I say managing up, how do you manage them in terms of team morale? the morale of the team that the staff or the person is going to work with. If they don't have a good team building or team cohesion among the team, they will giving them a task to undertake. They will not they will not understand what the output, because if they don't get the right input, the output will definitely be wrong. So you have to make sure that the team that is on the particular fact understand what the output of that activities need to come up. For example, let's say, we are going to have, we want to ensure that our pipelines are protected or from damages from third parties in terms of guarantees and the rest. And you put a team there, they have to understand the objectives of why they are going to do that. If they don't understand, they will definitely make mistake. The objective is to prevent guarantors or other people from encroaching into your right of way. That is one of the things I think, or one of the things management has to put right to ensure that they understand the objectives and the goals so that they can come out with a good output. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Seth. Please, you can keep your questions coming in the chat box. For those of us who just joined, we are discussing on managing people, not just process, practical tools for today's management leaders. So, Mr. Courage, I want to ask, so how can a manager stay firm and fair while also showing empathy without losing control of the team?
Interesting.
Okay.
Thank you. So before I go on to answer my question, and thank you very much, Seth, and good afternoon to you. The point is, in management, there is what we call the Peter Principle, which says that people rise to the level of their incompetence when organizations promote based on past performance instead of future capability. And so you find that every time there is a problem in management, you always have to do what we call a root cause analysis to understand who put the manager there and what the manager is actually expected to know, whether they are doing what they have to do. Now to my question. Being fair, firm, without losing control. Now, one of the things we talk about is on empathy. A manager must be empathetic, but that empathy must also come with boundaries. So we say that empathy without boundaries would definitely breed chaos, and boundaries without empathy will breed rebellion. And so as a manager, one of the things that makes you stand out in being fair and firm is to be very crystal clear on what the objectives of the business are. There must always be clarity. There must be non-negotiables. Okay, and that is why every business organization would also have values. Values guide the business on how to behave and think whilst it pursues its business and purpose. So as a manager, you have to learn how to separate the person from the behavior. You are valuable, but this behavior is not acceptable. A manager has to listen before deciding. Okay, don't delay decisions to avoid discomfort. There are times when you have to bite the bullet in your management approaches. This is what I want to say about your question.
Okay, thank you so much. So just a follow-up question. Can you describe a situation where this balance made a difference?
So you want to look at a classic example of where an employee is continuously missing deadlines because they have some caregiving responsibility. They have a toddler or they have an aged parent that they have to attend to. Now that classically defines what we call the sandwich generation. In fact, there are times when this becomes very complex, where the employee not only has a child, but also has an aged parent. They need the money for the work at the same time. They also want time. Now, there was an instance I had to deal with this way. And you see, as a manager, you have to be firm on the deadlines that the business has to deal with. Okay, deadlines are not optional. Okay, and so here you have to now redesign the employee's workload around some agreed timelines. You don't always have to cast work in stone to say that you have to report at 8 and close at 5. There are times when you have to create some flexibilities. The point really is that when it comes to managing some of these complex situations, you also have to understand as a manager that it is not an either-or situation. You have to know that there is a paradox that you have to navigate. Okay, and this is one of the challenges I see in management. Sometimes we are very binary about our management approaches where it's an either-or. Management is not an either-or, it's a paradox navigation activity. And so in such an instance, you always want to meet the employee halfway, but at the same time, not compromise on organizational goals and objectives. And once you are able to manage the discussion around it, where you create flexibilities, then performance is improved and the team show compassion, and that the organization standards are also not lowered.
Okay, thank you so much. And then also, I wanted to ask, our CMP program emphasizes most on people management. So, how can I help managers to move from just executing tasks to truly leading the people?
Yes. So, if you really want to lead people, leadership, we say that is not only about a position. Leadership is also about understanding the elements of leadership. So as a leader, you must exhibit what we call idealized influence. A leader must live by example. So living the organization's values is one of the things that a leader must do. A leader must also allow for intellectual stimulation. You don't know it all. And as an organization, the reason why you brought other people into the business is because you cannot do everything. And so there is a way that you approach the management of people through intellectual stimulation, where you are open to new ideas, open to new suggestions, and that way you are able to also help people to contribute better. And then, as one of the things that Seth mentioned in his comments, you see, there must always be clarity and vision on what we intend to achieve. Now, many times you find people are just working in the business, but they don't understand even what the business is about and what we intend to achieve. In management, we say that people value what they build. When people get to understand the destination, when they get to understand the promised land, there is a way that they contribute much more effectively. And this is what we call the IKEA effect. People value what they build. And there are even times when we want to make decisions, we engage people in that decision-making process, not because we don't know what to do, but people are better committed when they feel that they were part of a company's decision. Okay, so I think that as a leader, that coupled with even elements of individualized consideration, where you realize that every human being is different. And so the way you treat people must reflect that understanding. Okay, so these are some of the comments I want to make on the place of leadership and what we actually propound at the Graduate Center of Management on that clarity that leaders need to have. The last point I want to make on this is that, you see, there is a concept of the Johari window. Now, the Johari window says that there are things you know about yourself that everybody knows. There are things you know about yourself that nobody knows. Then there are things that everybody knows about you, you don't know. Now, many times when people are in leadership position, they think that they know it all. And so one of the things that I have seen in that change management equation when it comes to leadership is that there is leadership, there is a people, processes, culture, and all the things that come with it. And then there is a technical. And so one of the things we hammer on at the Graduate Center of Management is how that manager can be a leading manager, okay, to be able to understand the place of leadership on influence, on visioning, on setting goals and objectives. Thank you, Akusia.
Okay. And so, Mr. Courage, are you saying that A manager should prioritize people over process.
Akusia, a manager should not prioritize people over process. A manager should navigate the paradox between people and processes. Okay, and
Yes.
in management, we say that there is a necessary condition and there is a sufficient condition. If the processes were excellent, then why would you need people? You might as well just automate the entire business. But at every step of the way, you need that human touch, that human influence. And so the point you are making is that, and this is one of the things that also comes up a lot when it comes to the topic of leadership. In the topic of leadership, let me take you through a few concepts. You see, the thing is that you first suffer from what you call bounded rationality. If there are 10 causes of a problem and you only know 3, to your mind, the problem is caused by 3 things. The other 7, you may give some other reasons or maybe even spiritualize it. Okay. But the point you are making is that in leadership or in management, you have to know how to prioritize your goals and objectives. It is not an either or. This really comes from how we even solve questions in our schooling system. You are solving an objective test. There's always that ideal answer that you must give. But in managing people, there are times when you have to do what we call trade-off analysis, root cause analysis, to understand, okay, if I make this decision and Akusia is not happy about it, what does it mean for the business? What does it mean for her interaction with customers? Okay, what are the options available to me as a business owner, given all the institutional memory that Akusia has? Do I just say that, okay, I'll go to the market to look for another person? So these are the things that managers have to deal with on a daily, and you really have to be tactful about it. Keeping an eye on business goals, keeping an eye on people motivation. The last thing I want to say is that as a manager, you need to understand that people can give you efforts. They can also give you presenteeism, where they are just working to you, where they are just doing the barest minimum so that they are not separated from the company. And that is not what you want, because guess what? Your business is also in competition with other businesses. And so at every step of the way, for the business to have that competitive advantage, you really want to get the best out of people. And to get the best out of people is not something that you extract. Okay? It's something that you have to really manage in terms of understanding their motivations and things. And by the end of the day, you see that they will then contribute to performance and profits and so on.
Interesting. Yes. And so, how can one's leadership skills affect his or her managing tasks as a manager? How can his leadership skills affect his or her managing tasks?
Yeah, so this whole idea of leadership is really also talking about how you are, even like we say in our analogies, you are cutting a tree, you have a cutlass, but the cutlass is not sharp. Now, that leadership skill really goes a lot to impact the organization's bottom line. So to my mind, a manager may have the technical competence, and I spoke earlier on about the Peter principle. You can be a very good officer until the day you are promoted to become a manager. That is when you realize that being a manager, you cannot do all the work yourself. You are a very competent employee, you're a very competent officer. Now, when you get into that manager role and you still think that you can be able to do it all by yourself, that's when you hear managers saying that it's like, when I'm not here, nothing gets done. It's because you don't understand that you have transitioned from an individual contributor to now more of a collaborator. So the point is that there are a lot of very fine skills that managers need to have. And some of them I've alluded to in my presentation. Those skills of emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, understanding yourself, being socially aware, understanding that you cannot do it by yourself. Some psychologists believe that even our very school system of not making people, and I'm saying this very carefully and advisedly, okay, that our school system is built on the fact that we have to work independently. Of course, there are project work, there are things that we do have to do as a team. But in leadership and in managing people, it's a real collaborative effort. And sometimes leaders are carried away by the fact that their technical competence brought them here. Okay, and that is why even in managing people, we have career pathing where people are more aligned to doing technical things rather than leading people. That is why I also ask the question, who put the manager there? And what does the manager, or what should the manager know when they get into those positions? So all these are very fine skills that at the Graduate Center of Management, Akosha, I don't want me to spill the beans. At the Graduate Center of Management, we teach managers to be able to navigate some of these challenges on a daily, and these are very practical insights that we give. And most of the time, once you become self-aware as a manager, it always becomes easy to navigate some of these things. Thank you.
Okay. Let's quickly take a short break before we continue with our discussion.
A rule for the certified management professional, and with the first session that we've had, it's very educative to broaden your knowledge. Things that I was taking for granted as a manager, now I will know that I have to go in a particular way and shouldn't use force. And I will therefore recommend this course to people that are already managers, people that are hoping to be managers one day, and executives of organizations. Thank you.
Okay, so I think from this, the first session, I realized that as a manager, you can have the skills, but only the skills won't get you the results, because you need to have the skills, have knowledge, and also be competent in getting the results. And it's more like the first session has enlightened us that all the work depends on how we manage the people, because we are going to get the results through the people that we work with. So if you don't manage them well, getting the results that we are expected to have as managers, we will not be getting all those results. I think I've been enlightened more on the reason why we're not getting certain outputs. We thought probably the workers that work with us, they are not really competent to the work, but I realize that there's more details to us managing them to get the best result out of them. So I think after this session, I believe that at least I'll be a better manager as I used to be. Thank you.
The lecture was good and very interesting and very interactive. There's nothing like in-person class, because you see people share their experiences, share their thought processes, and it's always very exciting. And the lecturer was a very good man. There's so many experiences in different fields, and was able to share with everyone.
Okay, please let's keep the questions coming. You can send your questions through the chat box. Dr. Seth, we are talking about practical tools for today's management. And so how can these practical tools shift managers from everyday task supervision to people development?
I will just take a point from what Mr. Courage said. Very, very insightful. He mentioned about listening to your team, and also mentioned that human being are dynamics. and also ensuring that we are able to put the right to develop whatever expectation that we are requested from our workplace. One of the things I want to say is that what kind of tools can we use? You understand that we have a team where for example, we are going to go to a place, we are going to a location that all the company organization have. We are going to location A. There are some tools that we, the managers, you will be asked to by management to, when I say management, is expecting of a manager to undertake. But he has a team that he has to. For example, we have the footballers playing a ball. There are some tools that they need to. We're going to do a practical demonstration. When we have footballers going to play the World Cup, they have to be equipped with the skills, the logistics, and other things that they need. What kind of logistics do we need as managers to give to our team or our people that we have authority over them? One of the things that we have to build trust. We have to be very sure that whatever a team member is supposed to undertake, he has the requisite to equipment to ensure that he achieves whatever the company performance is looking at in terms of maybe you want to produce let me say a yogurt. What are the things that we need? We need the human capital skills need to be developed. The equipment, that's the right equipment to make sure that we can produce at a large amount of the yogurts. If we want to produce about 200 yogurts, if you are using an old system where we have to use to produce about 100, we need to develop and have the right equipment to provide for the team to provide the 200 yogurt that we need. That's the target that we want to achieve. So we have to make sure the team are well built in terms of career development, the skills that they need to have, in terms of the logistics that they need. We have to ensure that they have all the requisites to build. And you as a manager, you also have to make sure that you play your important role by ensuring that the team that you have can be on top of the job to make sure that we achieve the output. Thank you.
Okay, and so as a manager, you are interested in developing your employees, but there's this person who does not want to be managed. So how do you deal with that as a manager?
Okay, so I'll give you a practical example. I had a team, and that person was interested in motion. All that he doesn't want to learn or maybe be a good team player, but he wants to be on top. What I would do, or what we did for that gentleman, was to make sure that we pair him with one of the team members that you're comfortable with. And this gentleman who thinks that he's supposed to be accorded all the needed respect without knowing what needs to be done. We pair him with this gentleman, and his colleague was doing better than him. Then he sat back and realized that, no, I need to sit up. I cannot be in that position. So what he can do is that build a person pair them up, get a mentor for him. Make sure that whoever is going to mentor him so that he'll be equipped, have more knowledge on the field. So that when you build that team, he will learn from. Because when you put him out there to go and do a presentation, for example, on something that he's doing, he will realize that, no, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I have to learn from my colleague. And when we make sure that, when we did that, this gentleman started feeling like, I can't go and present our own position, but quickly he has to learn. And then when we brought the two of them together, they learn about each other, and then the productivity with the team was high. Thank you.
Okay, great. I also want to ask that how is trust relevant in management?
When you don't have trust, for example, Carrie said something when he mentioned that you have to make sure that whoever is managing a team understand where they are going. If, For example, you are promoting the team that you have, then you hide behind the scene, and because of micromanaging the team, you want to promote people because you are more affiliated to them in terms of religion, in terms of ethnic. It won't help. So when I'm trying to promote A and leaving B, but B is more competent, and all the time because my colleague or the person I move is A and it's not performing, and I promise I'll give them a notch at a particular level. Then you don't do that, and you rather promote the person who is underperforming. You lose the trust. People will not trust you when you are putting an information out there. So one of the things you need to make sure that whatever you are saying is what you are doing. You don't hide behind and say that, oh, this gentleman is my friend, so I'd rather give him the apple and leave B. So when you do that, you cause a lot of discrepancy among your team. So when trust is built, whatever you need, you'll be able to achieve with the team. Thank you.
Okay, so what are some of the ways a manager should earn trust and influence from his people?
The first thing is to be very consistent with whatever you are saying. Don't say A and then it means B. What I'm saying is that if I want to say everybody should go to the room A, then I move others to C instead of A. Or I'm saying to be going to eat a banku, and then you rather go in for fufu. It's a team that you are trying to build. When you are able to make sure that you are consistent with whatever you are doing, if everybody is supposed to have A, and everybody is going for A, and you are also going for A, you will build a trust. You wouldn't have problems. But when you are going for A and you rather go for B, then there's a whole lot of problems in there.
Okay.
Secondly, you have to make sure that you collaborate with the team. You need collaboration. Apart from being consistent, you need collaboration with the team. You have to collaborate with them in case, and also you also need to be have some kind of sympathy with the team that you have. In case they are emotionally down or they're having burnout, try and see how best you can cool them down. Sometimes wherever they are coming from, they are very much stressed, and you need them to perform a particular task. Maybe the person is burdened with some things from the house or wherever. You need to try to understand those you are working with. Try to understand them. When you realize that you're able to cope with each of them, understanding their emotional feelings, you will be able to achieve a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Courage, please, which CMP model do you see as the most valuable for solving real workplace challenges?
So that is asking me to choose the best amongst the best.
Yes.
I think that I'll pick, and pardon me to do this because I have to pick probably a top 3. I think to my mind, the issues of communication are very important. You know, what you say, how you say it, when you say it, under what circumstances are very important. I didn't say you are bad. I didn't say you are bad. I didn't say you are bad. You know, I have said 3 different sentences, but the emphasis is on different places. So for me, 1 is communication. The second, I think, is on conflict management. And interestingly, I handle conflict management, project management, together with some other content. Now, conflict management is where we are training managers on how to know when to be accommodating, when to collaborate, when to compete for the purposes of organizational goals and objectives. There are certain situations where you necessarily have to collaborate. And this is where we teach managers on the concept of a win-win. There are instances where there must be a zero sum because these are deadlines, these are the things that affect the company's bottom line. Okay, so at every step of the way, these are some of the things we look at in conflict management. Then there's also the last one I also talk about is project management, which I also handle. Now, the point I want to make about even project management is that, you see, the things that matter most should not be at the mercy of the things that matter somehow. Okay, the things that matter somehow are usually very short-term things where you are winning the battle and losing the war. So in project management, we teach managers how to actually understand the of the various stakeholders in project management. There are people who are internal, there are people who are connected, there are people who are external. There's a stakeholder metric that you have to look at to understand what you are doing and how it impacts people. There are times when, even in doing your stakeholder analysis, there are stakeholders who you may consider weak, but these are stakeholders who can get the attention of other very strong stakeholders. Like in today's world, all you have to do is to make somebody. I mean, there was a recent case where during the banking sector crisis, a woman went to the bank to collect her money and she was maltreated. The media picked it up, it was on social media, and I think the microfinance company even had to give the woman a house and all of that. And I even think that after that, they even still collapsed. Okay, so the point I'm making is that you need to understand the place of stakeholder analysis. And so for me, it's about what we teach on communication, what we teach on conflict management, what we teach on project management, all the things that we do. I could say, honestly, it will be very difficult to make one choice out of. They are all very compelling, very insightful, well structured, well thought through content that it's difficult to pick one out of the whole lot.
Okay, talking about communication. So, which communication habits do you think separate an average manager from an exceptional manager in today's workplace? Some communication actions that separate an average manager from an exceptional manager.
Communication really, and what separates an average manager from the regular, to my mind, is empathy.
Mm.
Now, because we started off the discussion with the place of people, people first make an emotional decision and justify it with logic. So for me, it's important to understand the place of how the manager communicates intentions, objectives, aspirations to the people. As a manager, and having been a manager and also at even my level of consulting and all that, one of the things that makes a manager to stand out is how you are even selecting your people. Now, if you're in the public space and you don't select your people yourself, that one, I can't really do much about it. But where a manager is positioned to decide who comes into the organization, then don't fall prey to just looking for academic qualifications and things like that. Look for the values that align with the organization's objectives. And one of the things that will make your work easy as a manager is when you're able to identify the right talent. The next thing I want to say is, in an organization or as a leader, we must really understand the place of performance management and living the organization's value. You see, we must know as a business what is important to us. Living the values is very important. And many times you have cases where an employee is a high performer, but is not a good team builder or not a good team maker. Now, the question then is, what constitutes good performance? Is constituting good performance as a salesperson just hitting your numbers at the expense of the fact that you are running down other team members because they are not able to meet their numbers? So this is where, as a manager or as an organization, you must recalibrate what constitutes performance amongst your team to mean that you are also hitting your target, but you must live the values, because you can't do this alone. In the unlikely event where you are not in this organization, others will be demoralized. So these are some of the things that we train managers to be careful about, and that kind of style will then reflect in how you are communicating with people, how you are setting goals and objectives, and so on. Thank you.
So, Mr. Curry, talking about talent, can you share a story where identifying a talent made a greater impact?
Yes. There is a case of putting a square peg in a round hole. there are times when people will come into an organization. There was a classic case where someone came into an organization as a legal assistant. Now that person took on a first degree in LL, had a first degree and then also went on to do LLB and all of that. But when the person came in, on close interaction engagement, you realize that this person was stronger in employee relations rather than just dealing with the legal. Now, that will not come up if you don't have a certain level of engagement with the employee. Now, what I've seen very practically in all of my work is that there are times when the organization caps people's creativity and innovation based on the job description that is available. And that is where, even in our performance appraisal processes, and I don't like the performance appraisal processes that are just asking people to fill a form and then you bring and then I'm just giving you marks. No, it must be a discussion that you must have. So to answer your question, there have been many instances where people are in a position to do one thing, but on further engagement, you realize that they have other skills and values that when you allow them to contribute to the organization, they tend to even contribute way better than what you even brought them in for. And all of that comes with that leadership attribute of individualized consideration. Okay, the classic example is where you leave the 99 in search of the one that is missing. And at times when we are dealing with people, managers must have that space to be able to interact, engage, and understand the needs of people. Now, that doesn't mean that as a manager, you are just dealing with people and talking to them and things like that. It is a paradox that you have to navigate. Okay, so people always have a lot to give, but if you don't engage, if you don't interact, if you don't listen, if you don't give them that opportunity, if you don't give room for making some reasonable or acceptable mistakes, you find an organization that expels the values of innovation, creativity. Look, the source document for innovation and creativity is experimentation. And if you experiment, definitely there will be some mistakes. So to what extent are you accommodating mistakes? How are you putting in safeguards to make sure that when people even make mistakes, they are able to come back and perform better? These are very important things that must be structured into the leadership mindset. Okay, and these are things that we let our managers understand at the Graduate Center of Management. And I think it's always a very impactful interaction with our managers. Lastly, Akusia, what I want to say is that you can have a leading manager, but you can also have a managing leader. We don't want a managing leader. We want a leading manager. A leading manager really gives a sense of vision, intellectual stimulation, leads by example. When you ask, and I like the answer that Seth gave on the trust. You see, trust is when I ask you to look up and you don't feel that you have to look down. And trust is a very important aspect of people management. And as a manager, you must live what we call idealized influence, live by example. A manager or a leading manager doesn't say, do as I say. A leading manager is do as I do. Okay, where we are able to see what we are doing, your attendance, your participation, your commitment to the job, how you are achieving your goals and objectives, and then that trickles over, that cascades. So these are some of the comments I want to make, and these are really important things that we all have to consider as managers in our engagement with people. Thank you, Akusia.
Okay, so someone is asking, we are saying that the most valuable asset of an organization is people. Someone is asking that if I intend not to be a manager or manage people, where will I apply my knowledge on management?
Interesting, because the first aspect of leadership and management is to self. And sometimes, and many times when I've done leadership sessions and leaders are expecting you to talk about how to influence people and things like that, I'm like, look, the first person to influence is you yourself. Now, you yourself, and we are in December now, where people will have all these goals and aspirations for the new year. The one that you said last year, Nukrai, is saying, okay. So one of the things that we always talk about is that All these management principles come first to you as a person. Leadership is not positional. Leadership is a mindset. When you get to understand that the first company that you are leading is myself incorporated or my own business, that is when it starts to trickle over into other people. And in fact, there are times when you don't have to lead anybody. By the way you lead your life, by the way you do your things, you are even a better influence than even when you are in a position. So you don't have to be in a management position. Your first business is yourself. And that attention and understanding that managing yourself is the first key to a transformed person, and that reflects on the team and the organization, is a very good starting point. The last thing is I see, even when you want to be an entrepreneur, your business will work on you first before it begins to work for you.
Okay.
Your business will work on you first before it starts to work for you. Now, what that means is that you as a person may have certain flaws, certain character issues that you may not be aware of. You don't know how to manage money. You don't know how to keep simple records. Your communication to customers is very poor. Now, these are not things that you have to be a manager necessarily to appreciate. You can start your own one-man business, and the business will work on you. Deal with your challenges, deal with your issues before it starts working for you. So all these trainings are not necessarily for people who are in big businesses or small businesses. It starts first with you as a person. And I think that question is a very good question, and that misconception must be raised, that management training, leadership training is not for people who are just in positional authority. It is for you first because you are leading your own life. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Seth, Dr. Seth, how can managers give tough or corrective feedback without hurting confidence and motivation?
Okay, before I answer that question, I would like to just add something on to what Courage said, or the question that the gentleman or whoever asked that question does. He doesn't want to be a manager, but how does he use that knowledge in that particular sphere? And one of the things I want each person or the audience to understand that you yourself, or let me say, the individual as a person is a manager on his own. You wake up in the morning, you have to brush your teeth, you have to change, go through all the daily chores in terms of washing down. You are managing yourself. So you're a manager automatically. When you move out from your domain or your home into the corporate aspect or corporate locations or area, you are a manager automatically. When you get to the office, you try to set up things. So if you're able to set up single things in your office, a task is given, you manage that activities. Indirectly, that knowledge that you have in terms of managing or leading is within you. That's why some people say leaders are born. Leaders are born. Or I sometimes beg to differ in terms of God has made you a manager of yourself. So when God put Adam and Eve in the garden, He has a man to manage the place, and then they have the Eve coming in to also support. You are automatically a manager on your own. There are principles of government management you yourself will have to go through in terms of the theories and other concepts and philosophies that you have to learn. Those ones are there, but the individual as a person is a manager on its own. So I want to also add on to what Courage said, that managers, that knowledge is within you. You have to apply it when you're working in a team. The ideas and the leadership qualities the leader to add on does. Okay. So going back to your question, if you can just.
How can managers give tough and correct feedback without hurting confidence or motivation?
So when you assign a task to any of your team or whoever you are working with, and the individual who is working with you present a task to you, you have to ensure that first of all, did he understand what activities that you assign him or her? Is the feedback that you want from that individual, is it what you are expecting? If the feedback is not 100% or maybe 60%. You have to call the individual, tell him that the activity that you gave him, he's not getting it. Then you can go back. You give you the feedback, ensuring that you do it with trust. You do it with, empathy, as the courage said. You have to make sure that whoever you are trying to talk to or whoever is your team member, he or she understand the tasks you have given to him. Give the feedback. Make sure the feedback in a very manner. Hey, can't you do this? We have to try to be more moderate in giving feedback. When you're giving a feedback, you must be clear and concise in whatever feedback you are giving to the individual. For example, I had a very good colleague in my office, and he was assigned a task. And when he came back with not what is supposed to be done. And he said, I have presented, for example, he's supposed to go to a place and then bring out about 10 results of whatever, but he came up with 2 out of the 10. You don't mark the person down and say that you're not competent. No. When you start using rude words or being bossy over the person with the feedback you are trying to give to your colleague, he will not even try and do his best. The performance of that individual will become very low. You have to make sure that you do it with love, respect, and tolerance.
Okay. Mr. Courage, please, beyond knowledge, how would you say CMP help in boosting a manager's career and credibility? Mr. Courage.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Please repeat your question. I didn't get that.
Okay, so I said beyond knowledge, how would you
Yes.
say earning a CMP certification boost a manager's career and credibility?
Oh, it will definitely boost your career and credibility because it will equip you with unparalleled knowledge and skills that you need to navigate today's business. Let me touch briefly on the question that you asked my doctor friend. The truth of the matter is, and one of the skills as we are talking about is what he explained on giving tough feedback without breaking confidence. So for example, every manager would have that challenge where a person they are working with is not up to scratch or is not delivering value. So how do you go about it? Look, we have a very simple framework that we use. You start first with the situation, the behavior, the impact, the expectation, and then the support. So you can have an instance where managers are giving feedback and the feedback is hitting the person rather than the behavior. So feedback should hit the behavior hard and the person softly. Otherwise, you would have a challenge as a manager. And this is a skill that you have to learn in addition to whatever technical skill you may have. Again, you should also understand that the specifics that you are given as a manager would help to deal with not labeling the employee and not tagging the employee as a bad or a good person. Okay, these together with many other skills, as I have spoken of, communication, conflict management, project management, understanding leadership, understanding self. And there are also a lot of other incorporations that we are making in terms of even how to understand yourself as a person. Okay, all these are skills that we give to the manager. And really, when that manager steps into a business, when they step into their own businesses, when they step out there, you realize that they are better able to navigate some of these challenges way, way better. Knowledge is a very important thing when it comes to transformation. You can have all the tools, but if you don't know how to use it, it's meaningless. Because if you have a car and I give you a toolkit, all the tools will be in the car. But if your tire is flat and I say, Akosia, take the toolkit, you will not even know which one to use for what. That is what we do at the Graduate Center of Management, where we are equipping managers with practical tools, and I'm using my words carefully, practical tools to navigate the world of work, their personal lives, and how to make impact in their business. These are what we focus on at the Graduate Center of Management. And once you pick up these skills, you realize that the value, you see, don't wish that your problems were less, but wish that you as a person are more valuable. And once you become more valuable, your problems become less. Okay, so that value is what we build in people. And definitely once you are building that value, everything becomes easy peasy. Your life becomes better. You become more valuable. And you get to live your life enjoying whatever you want to enjoy. Is that not a good thing?
Oh yes, yes. This last question, this is interesting. Someone is asking that some managers also think they know it all, so they don't want to hear any suggestions. You dare not talk when they give instructions, but will turn up on you when things go wrong. So how do they deal with such a manager?
Yes, interestingly, in our folklore stories, there was a classic story of Kwekwa who said that he had gathered all the wisdom in the world, put it in front of him in a calabash, and tried to climb a tree, only for his son to tell him that, please, the calabash has to be behind you before you can climb the tree. Now the truth of the matter is that, and this is why I spoke about in the Johari window, okay, that as a manager, the fact that you are in a position doesn't mean that you know it all. Okay, your position doesn't come with a special set of skills, and that's why I spoke about the Peter principle. Okay, and for managers who are exhibiting these attributes, they are rather breaking down the organization. So if a manager thinks that they know it all, well, what you can do is to contribute respectfully in a way that you can, but the buck doesn't stop with you. The buck stops with the manager. Okay, that is why when a team is not performing well, we don't sack all the players. Yesterday, my team lost. My team loses to weak teams. I'm sure you know my team by now. When a team is not performing well, we don't sack the players. We sack the manager. Okay, that should tell you that there's a very compelling effect that management has on people impact. And for any manager who doesn't understand that they have to listen to people to be able to make impact, then that is up to them. But again, the advice to you is that you must learn the timing to communicate with respect. Don't communicate with authority as if what the manager, don't point out faults to the manager in a way that will make the manager defensive. Okay, these are also all skills that you would even learn from us in terms of how to communicate some of these challenges. And altogether, I think that sometimes the problem may not be with the manager necessarily, but may also be how you are seeking to point out what the manager doesn't know. Okay, and there's always a diagnosis on all of that. And then you can see that, okay, the manager was very wrong, but I shouldn't have said it at this time. Okay, when he was in the heat of the moment. So these are some of the things that we teach you to be able to help you navigate the world of work. Thank you, Akosua.
Wow, thank you very much. These are real practical tools. Peter Drucker once said that the basic function of management is the ability to make knowledge productive. I believe we've heard a lot today, and these and many more are what we should expect when we enroll on the Certified Management Professional Program. Thank you to our panelists for their time and knowledge and valuable insights. Thank you so much. And then also to our attendees, thank you for participating. My take home is management training starts with you first. Management training starts with you first. Let's kindly take notes of this. Our CMP cohort took off last week. And so last week was basically an orientation and introductory class. But the main class starts this weekend, which is the 6th of December for the in-person, and then the 7th December for the online class. We have only 3 slots left. So if you are interested in taking your career to the next level, quickly call or WhatsApp 055 32 96 872. 055 32 96 872 to book your seat now. Remember, only 3 seats left. Call now and let's register you. The main class is starting this weekend. That's the Saturday for the in-person, and then the Sunday for the online class. Also tomorrow, we have an info session at 4:00 p.m. And so you can join us to hear and learn more about what we do in the Certified Management Professional Program. Thank you all for participation and have a good evening.